Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and we're continuing with our look back at the 1978 science fiction television series Battlestar Galactica, the original Battlestar Galactica, of course. And we're coming to the end of the show. Basically, it's episode number 22 over here. So this one is called Experiment in Terra. It is an odd episode. I go back and forth with how much I like this episode compared to I think a lot of other episodes. I think this one divides me quite a bit. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I'm like, okay, and sometimes I think like it's good enough, just about above average. And so while on a recon mission, Apollo is led to the beings of light in their that shimmering light kind of ship, and he's brought aboard, and he's given a guide by the name of John. And so, like I mentioned, I only watched this episode for the first time, I think around 2011 or 2012. Having grown up with Battlestar Galactica as a kid, especially while I was living in Kuwait from the time that I was born till the age of 11, I saw this show multiple times in reruns, but I probably never watched all of the episodes because there are some that stand out, but I don't think I've watched all of them. And one particular one is this. So when I watched it for the first time that I remember in 2011 or 2012, I was very surprised to see that the guest star portraying the role of John is a very familiar figure, also from the 80s, and another Glenn Larson production. In fact, there's a theme running between that show, Battlestar Galactica, as well as this show, in the fact that the Cylon, the thing and all that stuff. So basically it's Edward Mulhare who played Devon Miles in Knight Rider. So that was a very, he looks pretty much the same. This is 1978, 79, and I think Knight Rider started in 82, 83. I'm not sure. But yeah, roughly around that time. So it's not too many years apart. So he looks the same, almost, with his silver hair and that gentlemanly approach to everything. Although he came out of being a little bit cheesy in a few scenes, but overall it was lovely to watch him doing that appearance in BSG, which of course is one of my favorite science fiction television shows and one of my favorite television shows of all time. So seeing Edward Mulhare, the late Edward Mulhare, in this particular episode was something like a joy to the heart, and that's the best way I can put it. I don't think joy actually comes to the heart or comes from the heart, but yeah, that's the way I can actually express it. It's basically gave me a lot of joy seeing a very familiar face and a beloved face like Edward Mulhare. So most of the basic mission that he's got is there is a chance of an all-out war between the Western Alliance and the Eastern Alliance on Terra. So the advanced being want to stop it, and they use Apollo, who is temporarily disguised to look at. We see him as Apollo himself, but for the people of Terra, they think that he is a colonel named Charlie Watts, a warrior who's missing. In reality, Charlie Watts is actually captured in. I believe it's Luna 7, but that's what everybody thinks, and he in fact really is. But he is brought back. They make Apollo look, or at least appear to the humans on Terra to look like Charlie Watts. So initially he runs into a lot of trouble. He meets up with this young lady named Brenda Maxwell, who was Charlie Watts' girlfriend, on and off girlfriend. They return to her apartment. She picks him up. After he lands his Viper, she is led to believe that Charlie Watts gives her a call. She goes to pick him up from the side of the road, and from the way that he talks, she thinks he's actually lost his mind, or that he needs medical attention. So she contacts the military, and they take him into custody and subsequently questioned. Then they try, the rest of the fleet, rest of the warriors, a couple of them are looking for Apollo, and Starbuck is now led by the beings of light to go and help Apollo on Terra. So he lands on the planet, and initially he's attacked by some of the soldiers, but he manages to get away. he gets the upper hand because his weapons are more advanced. Um, so Starbuck goes to find out Apollo. He also meets with John. Starbuck rescues Apollo. Brenda and her father, General Maxwell, have also been imprisoned because they questioned the nationalistic president's decisions regarding the Eastern Alliance. And they finally realize, Brenda and her father realize that Apollo is not Charlie Watts, but that he is from another civilization, another human from a different part of the universe. And so the leaders of the Eastern Alliance confirmed their plans that they were planning to actually do a surprise attack on the nationalists, that is the Western Alliance. And at the same time, the president announces that a peace agreement. They planned this at the same time that the president is announcing a peace agreement with the Eastern Alliance. The attack is beginning, but the nationalist missile is being automatically launched after detection from the Eastern Alliance surprise move. The Galactica arrives and, following Starbuck's instruction, use the weapons to destroy all the missiles from both sides. And now the East and the West on Terra have no option because Galactica's weapons are far superior. They are more advanced, so they can actually, the Eastern and the Western Alliance are no match for them. Now, with their missiles all destroyed, the Eastern Alliance and the Western Alliance are given no other option but to declare peace among each other and work out their differences, which they decide to do. Eastern Alliance decide that they want to sue for peace, and Western Alliance is more than welcoming of it. John, before Apollo leaves with Starbuck back to the Galactica, John whisks him away and he says, "You don't have to answer anything from the president or General Maxwell, anybody else. You can go back to your people and then head back on your journey." Apollo finally asks him, "Is Terra actually Earth?" And he confirms that it is not Earth, in fact, but they are offshoots of the 13th tribe. They created their own civilization, their own kind of like colonies, separate from Earth. Earth is somewhere else, but this is very similar. They are people who are originally from the same 13th tribe, but they don't have any recollection of Earth because the remnants of the 13th tribe who went on, they've lost touch with them several generations ago, so they have no contact. These guys also are not very aware of, that is the people on Terra and their colonies, they're not aware of the 12 colonies and the destruction. But yes, now they are at least they're not going to be fighting with each other, and there will be peace on Terra as well as the other colonies that they have, like Luna 7 and Paradis, and life can go on for them. Very surprising, but considering the fact that, considering that the technology on Terra isn't as advanced as they had hoped it would be. It's actually less advanced than the survivors of the 12 colonies. They decide that they don't want to stay back and maybe find a home for themselves in one of the colonies or even on Terra themselves, and they decide to go and hoping that they will actually find the humans on Earth to be more advanced. Of course, we know that they aren't, or rather we aren't. But yeah, the decision is made. I every time I watch this episode, I'm actually wondering how come they didn't decide to actually help the people of Terra and join forces, make sure that with the combined weaponry they can actually take care of the Cylons. If the Cylons do find it, we haven't seen the Cylons in a while. But if they had joined forces, maybe with the Eastern Alliance, the Western Alliance becoming one, and the survivors of Galactica helping them with their more advanced technology, maybe they could have actually protected themselves from a potential Cylon attack. But yeah, that's the way the story went. But it's very fascinating for me that there is this other civilization of humans, very much like our heroes, and we don't know if the Cylons actually do catch up, because of course the series got cancelled after season 1. So that is very very, very surprising. But I would have loved to have known what would have happened. So a few notes from this particular episode. The episode's title was derived from the 1962 film Experiment in Terra. But yeah, it's just Experiment in Terra. And they did make an extended version of this episode as a TV movie with the same title. What else? And there's a lot of people who actually felt that, a lot of fans, basically science fiction fans, thought that this episode was kind of the brainchild and the inspiration for Quantum Leap, which was created by Donald P. Bellisario, who was a writer for Battlestar Galactica. Apollo leaps into the basic life of Charlie Watts. So Quantum Leap is something like that. I've never watched Quantum Leap, but I'm aware of it. And apparently, each time he does a leap, the protagonist goes into the body of someone else. At least the mind does. Belisario was actually asked, but he said it's not true. John reveals that Terra is not Earth, even though they have the same name. Basically, Terra in Latin for us is Earth, and for them, Earth is something is similar to what they call their planet as well. And of course, in Japanese, they call it Terra is basically another name for Earth. So all that put together. So another surprise that I got, that initially they had written the parts of Starbuck and Apollo as reversed. However, Richard Hatch complained that Apollo had been de-emphasized in favor of Starbuck, and they took his complaint to heart and they actually changed the roles. So the dialogues were mostly the same. The scene when you see the Presidium on Terra was basically the French pavilion left over from Expo 67, and it was actually shot in which is now called Le Casino de Montreal, or Montreal, how they pronounce it in French. What else? And of course, some of the scenes were filmed at Vasquez Rocks, which is more famously known for being a stage set in, a location shot for Star Trek. And Charlie Watts, that's the funniest part. Charlie Watts is also the name of the drummer for the Rolling Stones. I think he still is the drummer. And we don't know if there was actually, this happened to be a coincidence, or maybe Glenn Larson, maybe he was a fan of the Rolling Stones. Yeah, I have no idea about that. And they definitely use the white uniforms, which later become part of Galactica 1980, whenever they do a time travel piece. What else? Yeah, and like I mentioned, Edward Molare, who played John, is more famous in his role as Devon Miles on Knight Rider. Kenneth Lynch, who plays Dr. Gordon, played Grover in the Galactica 1980 episode The Night the Cylons Landed. I'm going to have to check that, I'm not really sure, I don't remember. Oh yeah, John Lancie, who is more famously known as Q in Star Trek The Next Generation and in a couple of episodes of Voyager. He appears as a Terran officer who approaches Starbuck's Viper, but you don't actually see him very well. The Eastern Alliance, like I mentioned in a previous video, is basically quite similar to the Soviet Union during the Cold War, or maybe even the Nazis. That's the Nazis, basically at least the military part of them was the one that I actually got. And the Soviet Union actually issued a protest over Battlestar Galactica, claiming the series promoted false stereotype notions of the Soviet Union's image, but I'm pretty sure they didn't give a damn about their protest. Some other stuff, experimental. So that's the end. We don't ever get to see the colonies of Terra anymore after the end of after this episode, and it's also the last time we see the beings on light. However, they do return in an episode of Galactica 1980, which is the return of Starbuck, my favorite Battlestar Galactica episode. So some of the plot elements that were introduced in Greetings from Earth, basically you get to know that Terra is indeed the 13th colony, but yes, they are remnants of the 13th colony. Lunar colonies mentioned both these episodes and are never seen. The conditions of the lunar colonies now apparently controlled by the Eastern Alliance. are only told by word of mouth. So you need to basically use your imagination. And much of the episode is a allegory for the Cold War, with fascism taking the place of communism. And let me see if there's anything else that I missed out. There's a lot of interesting things about this. Yeah, so again, I keep wondering why it was very important for the beings of light to actually have Apollo go and stop them, but they do say that they can't interfere since they are on another level of existence. They can only appear to some people, and they choose Apollo and Starbuck for this particular mission. Apollo first and then Starbuck to go and help him. Yeah, and I'm always surprised at how come they didn't do. The other points about this is you can make out that they are related more closely to the humans on Earth, because if you look at the names, Brenda Maxwell, Colonel Maxwell, Charlie Watts, that's pretty similar to the names that you see on Earth, at least the anglicized names. And from the colonies, you see that everybody only has a first name. There is no surname for any of them. So there's a joke also when he actually asks, when Apollo asks Brenda and she thinks he's Charlie Watts, he asks, "What's your name?" And she thinks he's got amnesia. She says amnesia. He says, "That's a pretty name, amnesia." What else? So the actress who played Brenda Maxwell is Melody Anderson. So the names that they have for the people of Terra is very similar to what you would have on Earth. So Brenda Maxwell, President Arends is they don't say his first name, and then everybody else has got a first and a last name. Logan Moore, General Maxwell. So the names are pretty similar to what we would have as anglicized names in Earth. So definitely they are related. So that's basically it for this particular episode. Like I said, I always go back and forth as to, do I really like this episode that much? Considering everything for this particular rewatch, I think I'm going to give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. Or maybe an 8. I'm going to give it an 8. I do like it. And there's a lot of questions that are unanswered in this, for me at least, and maybe for some other fans. So I would love to hear a fellow BSD fans' viewpoints on this particular episode. So, excuse me. So that's it. We're down to the last 2 episodes after this, and then I'll start watching Galactica 1980. So stay tuned for that as well. Good night, folks.